But now, to begin this morning's sermon, I want to share a prayer that is attributed to Oscar Romero, but he didn't pray it. This isn't his words. These are words that were spoken by someone who was under St. Oscar Romero's care. So he was a bishop, and so one of the priests that was in his care and traveled around with him on his death. And so for those of you who might not know the story of Oscar Romero, he was a priest. He was very much an establishment priest, supported a very totalitarian and oppressive government, but when made a bishop, decided to go and walk and live among the people who he was now a shepherd to, and seeing their plight, had an epiphany, and took a total 180-degree turn and became he then became known as the bishop to the poor. And so when he died, he actually died. He knew in much in the same way as Martin Luther King Jr. He had spoken to the person who actually wrote this prayer. He had spoken to him as he was driving to Mass one Sunday, and said that I don't know how much longer I'm going to be alive, because he knew that what he was saying, what he was preaching and teaching, and the causes that he was moving forward were putting him in direct opposition to some very powerful and violent people. And that Sunday, as he celebrated the Mass and he raised the Eucharist up for the people to see, he was shot by somebody who entered the sanctuary from the back of the church. And that person left, and as far as I know, it's never been solved. But on his death, these words were written in homage to him. We plant seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces effects far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are the workers, not the master builders. Ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future that is not our own. Nothing we do is complete, which is another way of saying that the kingdom always lies beyond us. No statement says all that should be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. No set of goals and objectives includes everything. Now, I know we've heard that prayer not very long ago. When Reverend Cheryl received her doctorate, it was part of the celebration at Northeastern, and during her celebration, it was read again by Terrence and by Wilson in Spanish and in English, and then it was read again in the sanctuary that Sunday, the following Sunday. But I think it's a beautiful piece of poetry and prayer that reminds us of just where we are in the whole scheme of things. Because here's the thing. At the beginning of our lives, and the beginning of our lives in faith, we are actually the seed. We're the seed that is being sown. And we're the seed that is being sown by Jesus himself. So Jesus is the sower. And Jesus shares the message, shares the seed widely. And we who are here, who live in the faith, are like the seed that falls on that good soil. That good soil where the seed germinates, the word takes hold. In the words of Jeremiah, and you've heard me say this before, and you'll hear me say it again. In the words of Jeremiah, it is like the word was written upon our hearts. So we are that seed. We are the seed that took that word and has multiplied it 30, 60, 100-fold. But then we become like the sower in the story. We become the ones who are sowing the seed. We are the ones working in the garden. And we're putting the seed out, and we don't know, we have not got a clue where that seed is going to land and how it's going to take hold. We don't know. But the beauty and the passage that I just read in honor of Oscar Romero, the beauty is we don't have to know. We don't even have to care. Our job, our mission is simply to sow the seed, to share the word wherever we might, knowing that the seed will land where the seed will land. And there will be people who, and trust me, there are people who have basically thrown it right back in my face. Just said, I don't need all your God stuff. And trust me, the language was not quite so. But I just don't need it. Okay, that's fine. Don't take it. You know, there are others who have heard it and talked about it and wanted to engage with it, but very quickly then I didn't see them anymore. Now, what happened to them? I don't know. I don't know what they went off and did. I don't know if it really just resonated so well that they went out and started sharing it with other people. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. But there are those, and we are they, for whom that word has been shared, and we have allowed it to take root, nurtured it ourselves. And then the story continues and repeats and repeats and repeats. And so the harvest for some is 30-fold or 60-fold or 100-fold. And the beauty for us is it's not our responsibility to keep count. It's not our responsibility to try and discern where we should share the word. We're just called to share it wherever we are. And when that word is shared, it might take seed, it might not take seed. It might start something and then it gets nurtured somewhere else along the line. And maybe our first word to somebody, they go, that sounds interesting, and they go off and do their thing. And 5 years later, maybe someone else says something to them and they go, oh, I think I've heard that somewhere before. And then they go off and do their thing. And then 5 years later, they hear it again. And maybe somewhere along the line, it takes hold and takes root, and they move forward with the message. But we don't have to worry about that. We're not the master builder. We're not the one who created the garden. We're simply the ones who till it. We are simply the ones who scattered the seed. We are simply the ones who go where God calls us and offer the word to whoever God offers. That's all we have to do. That's our role in the building of the kingdom, is to simply share the seed, to scatter the word. And God will nurture who God nurtures. And we don't even know, does it take a day? Does it take a year? Does it take a decade? Does it take a lifetime? I can tell you, I'm pretty sure it takes a lifetime. A few weeks ago, I told you, like, my story, part of my story was that I was never going to be here. part of my story was that well, I don't know if I've told you this part of my story or not, but my best friend and I, when we were 17 years old, sat in a field and we looked at each other, and I said to him, Tim, if I turn 40, when I turn 40, come along and shoot me. And I was serious. It was like, and people go, why would you say that? And I said, because I figured if I turned 40, I was old. And not only was I old, I hadn't lived a life hard enough. My life, I figured, like, I should live hard, play hard, so hard that by 40 I shouldn't be here. And so if I turn 40, shoot me. Well, the first time I met John Bedell was at a no fixed address event for the YWCA, where I was sleeping in my car for 24 hours, and it got publicized a little bit. And at the time, I was 50 actually. And so I'm sitting there, it's like 11 o'clock at night, I'm having a last cup of tea before I'm going to go to bed in my car, and Tim walks up. My best friend, who I hadn't seen in like decades. And he walks up and I go, Tim. He goes, yeah. First thing he says to me, are you glad I didn't shoot you when you turned 40? And I thought to myself, yeah, I am actually. But here we are. And so how did I get here? I don't know. Somewhere along the line, the seed got sown in my life, and that seed somewhere along the line later on took root. And now here I am, and I'm trying to scatter the seed. The person who first shared the word with me probably thought it was a lost cause. They didn't know. But we don't have to know. We are not master builders. We are simply we're tradespeople. Tradespeople building this kingdom, one, mixing metaphors, one seed at a time. I love that. How extraordinary is that? That we are invited into this awesome endeavor that began, remember, it begins with God speaking a word, and creation begins. And the incredible thing is that when creation began, all things led from the moment of creation to this moment where I am talking to you. What is that? Right? It's the awesomeness of this great dream that God had. And a great dream that God had that could not be complete without you being here at this moment. I think about that. I mean, I sit and I think about that and I go, like, how could God possibly care that much about me? And the reality is that God does. God cares that much about you. That God wanted you to be here. God sent out the invitation. Somewhere in your life, in your history, the seed was sown. And the blessing is that you accepted. You accepted the invitation. You might not have known that that's what you were doing. You might not have known that that's what you were doing at the time. But you accepted the invitation to be here today, to hear the invitation to participate in the ministry that happens at the Embrace Center, to hear the ongoing struggle of some of our members and their need for our prayer and our support. You were called to be here, to be part of that, to be part of this community. And now, part of your response is to leave this time of worship, to leave this place of sanctuary, not yet, in about 20 minutes, but to leave this time of worship and to leave this place of sanctuary and to share the seed with others, to let them know the good news that is ours, to let them know the promise that it holds for their lives, to let them know that they can indeed be transformed, that where they are today does not have to be where they are tomorrow, that God desires so much more for them and their lives. Now, when we share that promise, that invitation, we have to be honest. Because the honesty in that invitation is that all things are not going to be made well. And Reverend Cheryl talked about it last week, and I talked about it the week before. All things will not be made well. It won't be a straight road with no difficulty, no trouble. It will not. That is not the promise. But the promise is that regardless of where we are, if we are with God, it will be a place of blessing. It will be a place of gratitude. So, we are not master builders. We are not the ones who created the garden. Oh, one other little story, sorry. We have a garden in our backyard. And it's like part of it's incredible, right? So tomato plants that are this high. I don't know if you've seen the pictures on Facebook. Reverend Cheryl shared a few. Already, lots of tomatoes, lots of yellow beans. We have these things called scarlet runners that we're not sure, like they have beautiful flowers. We're not sure if they actually have any beans or anything because there's just so many flowers. But anyway, in that garden, we Reverend Cheryl, not me. I'm not the person who. I'm only the person who goes and tries to prop up the tomato plants. But Reverend Cheryl actually sowed this wonderful. Like she had them all laid out. It was perfect. Perfect. And then the plants started coming up, and in amongst the beans were tomatoes from like last year. That somehow didn't get cleaned out well enough, right? So, and those tomato plants, they're already like this high, and like in reality, they're weeds in that part of the garden. And there's other stuff that we don't even know what it is, but we don't want to pick it just in case it's a vegetable, not a weed. We're not sure, right? But the beauty of that garden is it's going to grow. And we're actually going to take some of those tomato plants out and give them to Oliver, our son, who just moved into a new place, and he's got a little garden area. So we're going to give him some of those tomato plants. But in that garden, the seed was sown, and it has fallen, and it will continue to grow. And as evidenced by the tomato plants that are growing where we didn't plant tomato plants, they'll continue to grow even though you don't want them. Like children. But that's the thing. Again, if you take nothing away from today other than this, please take this. Ours is not to have the whole thing in our head, like know what's going to happen from beginning to end. That's not our task. It's not our ministry. We are not the one who created the garden. Ours is simply to sow the seed, to share the good news, to nourish it and nurture it, and to accept the glory that comes out of it, with songs of hallelujah and loud amens, because it happens, and God is good. And for that, we can say, thanks be to God.